Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series. We'll take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video will be reviewing the solo adventure, The Tenacious Bard vs. Orcus, designed by Anthony Joyce-Rivera for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my content, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Are you ready to rock? I'm usually ready to rock. I like rocking occasionally. The Tenacious Bard vs. Orcus is a solo adventure, which I have reviewed a couple of these in the past, including one by this designer, and it is designed specifically for the Bard class. And if you don't get yet from the cover and the title, it is starring a heavy metal Bard class, which I am a huge fan of this kind of character. I love, I'm not huge into Tenacious D or anything, or the heavy metal genre, but I do like that stuff. I did love the video game Brutal Legend, which I thought did a great job of fully exploring and embracing the badassness of metal, while also, and I think Tenacious D does this also well, is that in, nowadays you kind of look back and it is goofy. We have to kind of acknowledge the fact that it's kind of goofy and silly, and yet it's still cool if you fully embrace it, which in a lot of ways I think that could describe something like wrestling or superhero movies, or a lot of these different things that people enjoy, that there's some acknowledgement that, like, yeah, it's kind of silly, but it's still really, really fun and cool. And I think I very much get that with heavy metal and Tenacious D, and I very much get that with this adventure. So if you legit love heavy metal, but you're also willing to kind of, accept the laughter and maybe poking fun at it in all the right ways, then I think you're really going to enjoy this adventure. Now, a solo adventure means it's designed for one DM and one player. I have never personally done something like this, but it is an option for folks if you want a more one-on-one experience. Maybe just have fewer players. Maybe you want to tell your players a specific side venture that they have, which this one will be a pretty epic, hilarious one. I also think it's awesome that this one assumes the player is a certain class, which allows you to embrace a very specific, very linear and very short, which it does say on the cover, 2 to 4 hour adventure. It's designed to be a one-shot, obviously, which I think all one-on-one adventures should be. But because we're looking at just the Bard class, you can assume certain mechanics, and then you can expand on those mechanics, which is what we get here via the Rock-Off Appendix. First of all, flipping through this, holy crap, the production level, the art, the battle maps, everything is top-notch, which is something I've come to expect from this designer, but I'm still goddamn impressed by it. I absolutely love the illustration. Shout out to Brian Patterson for giving us what looks like absolutely original artwork, since it's literally ripped straight from the pages of this adventure. And then original battle maps by C. Zepuku, which I believe is Christian Zoich's artwork. You can find them on Patreon. I've used several of those maps and reviewed several of those products. So absolutely amazing production value throughout this adventure, even though it's only a little over a dozen pages long for an adventure. The actual adventure, again, stars a bard. You should be about 6th level, and it starts off very much in medias res, which is you are at the beginning of you're at the end of a big rock concert competition to declare being the greatest battle of the bards. So you're already up against the big boss fight, which is a great way to start an adventure, especially a solo adventure when you really want to get the ball rolling and immediately jump into something fun. And you basically roll right into a just hilarious, over-the-top, there's a clown. He's Thaco the Clown, which is awesome. A very fun nod to earlier editions of D&D. Was a very creepy, funny clown, and he's got this this rival, awesome bard called War Dukes, of course, just adorned with metal spikes and blood and chains and everything, just as you would absolutely picture a kind of 80s hair metal rock star to look like. But the mechanics for the bard battles are really awesome. Essentially, the bards summon creatures, an avatar, and then the avatars actually wage war with each other, and then the bards can use their spells to target the creatures, but never the other enemy bard. In other words, you're playing fucking Pokemon, which I think is awesome. And there were other, what is this, the Bard's Tale I think did this, where the whole Bard concept, and previous editions of D&D also put the Bard as a summoner, as I recall. Like in 3rd edition, the Bard had all the best summon spells, and a lot of times you were like, that was your whole thing, as you were the conjurer, you summoned all these animals. The Bard has since kind of moved away from that and become just kind of another caster in 5th edition. I'm not a huge fan of the way bards are done in 5th edition, although Bardic Inspiration is fine as a mechanic. But in this case, I love the idea of summoning these avatars, which they can range. The designer basically says anything that's a CR between CR 3 and 5. The boss in this case is an owl bear, and they give examples of a Zorn or different elementals. I fucking love this artwork of a Zorn wearing like a heavy metal, like leather black jacket and like spiked bracelets and everything. That is fantastic. My webcam's unfortunately covering up like half of it, but it's freaking awesome. And then when you battle, whenever you use Bardic Inspiration, which is something you're going to use a lot of as a bard, especially as a 6th level bard, I think at that point you were getting your Bardic Inspirations back on short rest, so you should be giving those out like candy in battle. And I love that it's redesigned like this, because a bard is obviously a great support player in a party, because you're giving out Bardic Inspiration. So in order to put a solo bard into the mix, you kind of have to change the mechanics a bit. And I think the designer does a great job here, because now you've got your summoned creature, so obviously you can support that creature. And on top of that, you've got these riffs that go off. So whenever you're doing a Bardic Inspiration, it's you doing, which, by the way, shout out to everybody who's watched what was this? It was that we recently did a one-shot adventure where I had a hair metal bard, and I absolutely did that with that bard. I was a dragonborn with like a pink mohawk, and named Wolfgang, and he definitely carried around a great axe that was also his guitar, and every time it was Bardic Inspiration, he was sitting there doing like, guitar riffs and stuff. So that was, I'm really on board with this, and I get really excited about as a bard, not like your typical, lute playing soft bard, but somebody who's literally just doing hair metal, like fucking jams and riffs on a guitar is what I like. And I love that the idea here is every time you're doing Bardic Inspiration, you're also giving an extra effect to your summoned creature. So maybe they gain wings, or they rage and gain damage resistance, or they deal like extra thunder damage, or they gain bonus to their armor class. It's really powerful stuff, and you can kind of break that because it's all special mechanics for bard dueling. But really, really awesome, to the point where, Anthony, where is this bard subclass? Like, I want to fucking play this bard, because the bard I'm using is the college of, in the game I played, is a college of valor bard, because I wanted to also, he's got just big strength and con, and he would literally wield his axe like a weapon, which was fine. But in terms of having those mechanics, I had Thunder Wave where I could kind of, do the power slide in, and that was okay, but I wanted more mechanics for that. And the idea of just summoning an avatar creature and then all your things go into that creature, that is a really cool idea that's maybe even missing from D&D. Like, the ranger can do that a little bit with their summon or with their animal companion, but I would love to play this kind of bard, and I think that would have been a really great complement to this entire adventure. I realize I'm going off a huge tangent off the actual adventure itself, but I really did get really excited about these rock-off rules, and then I want more out of it. So that was actually a bit of a con for me, is that I felt like it was missing this expansion of the bard rules, because I liked these so much, and I wanted there to be an actual, even a bard subclass would have gone really far with me and made it really exciting. So the player does that rock off. They can win or lose, doesn't really matter. They go on to the next section, and again, this is a very fast moving, ridiculous, over the top, linear, like you just go from scene to scene to scene. There is no chance to slow down and explore a little bit, which you just have to know that ahead of time. Like, it is a very linear, like, you are going from action set piece to action set piece, and that's how we're running this adventure. I'm not necessarily going to include that as a con, because I think that going into this adventure, that's how it's going to work. Tasha shows up and tells the players, your only hope, you need to go battle Orcus, and there's a rule in hell that anybody that challenges him to a rock off, he has to do it. He can't just power word kill you and take you out of the equation. So she sends you to hell, and you meet a fun cameo, which I get the reference, as I have been reviewing Anthony's products for years now, and including the Heir of Orcus, which I believe is a 4-part adventure that includes these Mephisto twins characters. So that was a really fun cameo for me, a little bit of an MCU thing where I see these characters popping up in this other adventure, which is pretty fun. And the players, there's a really cheeky moment where they have to stand in line of this line with like 10,000 lemurs and be able to get their permit to get the rock off thing. And I get that, bureaucracy's, hilarious and funny, and which is a funny bit of hell too, which obviously going to hell, very metal, which I appreciate. The adventure gets a little cheeky for me when you're first sent to hell. Either you automatically win Descent into Avernus by freeing El Terrell from the chains, or you kill Tiamat as you come in, and what is it, Zariel gives you a big thumbs up or something. It gets a little too goofy and over the top for me, at least with how it plays very fast and loose with the lore of D&D. And again, I get the fact that we want to be over the top, we want to be metal. I maybe not go so far as to like win entire campaigns because of this one little goofy moment. I don't know, but that's an easy thing to skimp over. It's weird that the designer even included two of them. One of them is like, okay, well, if you don't want to do that to Descent into Furnace, here's this other one. And I thought, okay, maybe this is the less crazy one, but then you just kill Tiamat and get a thumbs up from Zariel. I was like, that one's still pretty goofy and over the top. I don't know if I would actually use either of those. But I like the reference with the two characters. This is your one little chance to explore a little bit and let the character kind of figure out how to solve this problem. But the designer kind of wants you to solve it their way, which is hop in the twins' war machine, start playing music like you're like the from, oh god, what's that movie with Mad Max, right? With the guy on the thing and he's shooting the flames everywhere. You know what I'm talking about? Fantastic movie. And you do that, and you know all the lemurs come at you and just grind through them, and it's all very metal and bloody and awesome. And if the players have a different method, you could probably let them do that, but the designer kind of wants you to have that going on. Then you actually meet with the Cambion, and you can have a duel with you can sign a contract with the Pit Fiend, and then have a duel with the Cambion. And there's another dual rock off thing you can employ, and they've got a Hellhound creature. It's this scene right here. And then finally, you just take this montage to Orcus, and there's literally a D4 table of like what crazy things happen. And one of them is you like Tiamat comes roaring at you, and you just leap on the back, which I thought we killed her. We leap on the back of Tiamat and go soaring off and just kill like thousands of demons, or we just race on that war machine throughout everything. Or maybe we save Zariel. She's knocked out of the sky, and she brings us to Orcus. You know, this is, you got to accept all this. It's just it's crazy. It's over the top. It just picture a heavy metal like montage. You know, there's no real cohesive story here, but that kind of works for me because of the theme and the fact that it's just supposed to be awesome for the sake of awesome and not necessarily telling a cohesive story that makes any sense whatsoever. So I kind of dug that for the most part. And then we enter into the arena. You meet with Orcus. Orcus immediately laughs and power words kills you, but then Asmodeus appears and says, "Nuh-uh, buddy, like this is the pact. We all have to withstand the rock-off rules." And then you can sign a contract with Asmodeus, and then your summoned avatar becomes a Tarrasque. And then, so presumably the player gets to control a Tarrasque against Asmodeus's, what does he have? A musical avatars, Galorix the Defiler and Drexer the Annihilator, which are two very powerful creatures, which unfortunately I don't think we're given stat blocks at the end here for any of those creatures, which feels like a bit of a missing component. But and you either win or lose, it doesn't really matter, but you're done with the tale, and it seems very epic and cool. And throughout the entire adventure you have these musical cues, which is awesome and fun. Obviously a big part of Brutal Legend was the awesome soundtrack that was fully licensed. Here we've got basically links to like Spotify or YouTube that include obviously Tenacious D, but obviously also Dio, Metallica. I noticed there's probably more that the designer could have come up with, but I appreciate that we got all these in here that kind of fit the what's going on in the scene, and then you can click on these if you're playing digitally or just have them on a soundtrack. You know, you kids today with your iPods and stuff, or Spotify, you know, that's what I'm using. And play that stuff throughout the entire story, and I think that would add a lot and be absolutely perfect for what's happening here. So I really appreciate the musical cues. So I think, you know, it's very short, it's very linear, but it's very fun, and I think it evokes the heavy metal theme. Even folks like me who maybe aren't like super into the genre, but still really enjoy the genre and really get caught up in how much fun it can be if something fully embraces it, which this absolutely does, I think is very, very fun. And I love the focus on the bard, the focus on maybe a bard subgenre that maybe has not been explored as much, although I certainly wanted to. That was my first thought of making a bard, was to make a hair metal awesome guitar playing bard who just shredded and used that as like magical spells and everything. So I absolutely loved that attention to detail and bringing out that part of the character class. So for a solo run character adventure, I think it's an absolute blast. Let's go over my pros and cons for the Tenacious Bard versus Orcus. Pro, it fully embraces the tricky balance between heavy metal, silliness, and badassitude. And it is a tricky balance, because I do think if you go too serious and too hardcore and just blood and chains and metal, and then everybody's like, yeah, okay, you're getting a little bit too much. And then if you go the other direction and you're just kind of mocking it and making fun of it the whole time, then somebody who likes that stuff is going to be like, well, wait a minute, I'm not really enjoying this. I just feel like I'm being made fun of or talked down to. So it's a very tricky line you have to walk to be able to do both those things. I think at times it gets a little too tongue-in-cheek, like that moment I said, you either beat Descent to Avernus or you kill Tiamat. That got a little too much for me, but for the most part, I think it's pretty fun, and it's very self-aware, basically, of what it's doing, what it's trying to do in terms of its theme, and it seems to know heavy metal well enough to embrace that, and without being necessarily too hardcore into it, not having fun with it. It has fun with it, which I appreciate. Pros, full color battle maps, and gorgeous original artwork. Just flipping through this thing is just hats off, absolutely incredible. And that's honestly something you should expect from this designer. It's what I expect from the designer, is just an absolutely gorgeous piece with full presentation. It's really fun seeing like the Mephisto twins done with a original art styles. I've been, all the way back when Anthony was having like pixel art, for all the stuff. And it's been fun to see that evolution in budget and art style and everything going throughout the years. And I love the look of this product. It's so sexy. Pro, awesome Bard dueling rules with summonable avatars and special bardic buffs. If you are worried about how the hell do you run a solo Bard adventure with a character that's almost designed from the outset to be a support character, this does an absolutely awesome job of that. Let me summon a creature, and then let me support that creature. And then I could still walk up there and attack it with my, sword or whatever if I wanted to, but as long as you're attacking that creature and not the opponent themselves, it's literally like a Pokemon style battle, but with fucking heavy metal and awesome creatures like Zorns and Elementals and Owlbears and a Tarrasque at the end, which is incredible. What a great excuse to let your players play as a Tarrasque stat block for a hot second. And Pro, music cues featuring Metallica, Dio, and Tenacious D throughout fully immerses you into that heavy metal world, which I love. Also, really fun appendixes at the end. We've got this little backstory where you can try and get some information from your player, let them have fun with it, and then the full infernal contracts that you can get, 2 of them, actually written in the full lawyerese languages with a little sign and date at the end, which is really just chef's kiss awesome. I did include as a con, which just feels a little bit cheesy for me to actually do, but I honestly really wanted those rock-off rules to be expanded and made into a full Bard subclass, which I realize is not the scope of this adventure. I'm probably asking for way too much, but they're really good rules, and it feels like the designer just a few more steps further would have expanded this into a full-on, like, hey, maybe when you go into this mode or when you play this adventure, you gain this new subclass, or even if your players really like this, maybe this is the reward you get for completing this adventure, is you've got maybe either infernal connections, or you just know how to do this rock off thing where you just enter this mode and you can summon a creature. I just like the idea of an entire Bard subclass that's built around summoning a creature and then buffing and supporting that creature. I think that's really fun as hell. Or just give me a heavy metal Bard subclass in general. I would love that to death. This is all extra stuff that is just me wanting this, but to me, that rock off rules just made me more excited for more information for that kind of content. Final verdict, short, linear, but diabolically awesome. The Tenacious Bard vs. Orcus is an over-the-top tribute to heavy metal and the most badass adventure a solo bard could embark on. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel, and you can support my work at patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Adam, Stan, William, I'm Loud, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Role Player, Roll, Christopher, and Dig Dug DM. And gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty White, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lion, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, and Scott. Thank you all very much for your support.